I never meant to look at her that long. It started as a glance, the kind you give someone out of politeness, but something about her stopped me. Maybe it was the way the late sunlight slid through the window and found her face first, touching her skin like it remembered her. She was standing in her brother's kitchen, sleeves rolled to her elbows, hair pinned up with one stubborn strand loose near her jaw. It moved when she breathed. I shouldn't have noticed that. But I did. "Coffee?" she asked, her voice steady, too steady. Like she'd practiced not letting it waver. "Yeah," I said, though I didn't really want coffee. I just didn't want her to stop talking. The quiet stretched between us, not awkward, just waiting. You could hear the hum of the fridge, the small tick of her bracelet as she stirred sugar into one cup, not asking how I take mine. She somehow already knew. When she handed it to me, our fingers brushed. It wasn't one of those dramatic moments. No spark, no gasp, just the faintest warmth, the awareness that someone was closer than they should be. She smiled barely. "You've changed," she said. "Since when?" "Since you stopped being the kid who used to trail after my brother." There was no teasing in her voice, only observation. And I suddenly felt both 20 and 12 again, uncertain where to put my hands, how to stand, what to say that didn't sound like I'd been waiting for her to notice me. She leaned against the counter, watching me over the rim of her cup. Her gaze wasn't bold, just searching. Thoughtful. Like she was trying to remember something about me she used to know. "You look tired," I said, and instantly regretted it. She laughed quietly, looking down. "That's one way to call someone old." "That's not, I know." Her voice softened. "It's all right." The silence that followed wasn't empty, it filled the air, thick as steam from the coffee. The kind of silence that makes you aware of your own heartbeat. Outside, rain began to fall, thin, steady, the kind that blurs edges. She glanced toward the window. "It always rains when you visit," she said, like it meant something. "Maybe it's just waiting for me." I tried to joke. Her eyes met mine again, and this time she didn't look away. Something in her expression flickered, recognition, hesitation, maybe even regret. She set her cup down, the sound too loud for how careful she was being. "You shouldn't look at me like that," she said. "How am I looking at you?" Her lips parted, then closed again. She didn't answer. Instead, she walked past me, slow enough that the air shifted when she did. Her perfume, faint, familiar, brushed against me like a memory I couldn't place. I turned slightly, wanting to say something, anything, but the words stuck. Her hand reached for the doorknob leading to the hall. "Your brother won't be long," she said without turning around. I watched the back of her neck, the small rise and fall of her breathing. My voice was quieter than I meant it to be when I finally spoke. "I wasn't waiting for him." She froze. Not dramatically, just the kind of stillness that happens when the truth catches up faster than you expect it to. The rain grew heavier outside. Somewhere in the house, a door opened, a sound that broke whatever fragile thing had started between us. She stepped away before I could say another word, leaving only her scent and the faint heat of where her hand had brushed mine. And for the first time, I realized she hadn't asked me why I was really there. Maybe she already knew. The next morning, I found her on the porch, barefoot, a mug in her hand, watching the rainwater slide down the railing. The light was soft, gray, the kind that made everything feel quieter than it was. She didn't turn when she heard me step outside. "You're up early," she said. "I didn't sleep much." "Too much coffee," she murmured, half smiling. "Or too much thinking." At that, she looked at me, really looked. Her eyes softened, as if she understood exactly what that meant but wouldn't admit it out loud. She'd been married once. I'd heard my friend mention it years ago. A short, quiet marriage that ended before most people even knew it began. No kids. No drama. Just absence. And me, I was in that age where people still called you young, even when you felt older than you were supposed to. I'd tried relationships, but they never lasted past the surface. Too much noise, too little truth. Maybe that's what I noticed in her, the calm, the quiet honesty that everyone else seemed to have lost. She gestured to the empty chair beside her. Sit before the rain stops. It's better when it sounds like this. I sat, not because of the rain, but because she'd asked. We didn't talk much. The air between us did most of the speaking. The scent of her coffee, the faint trace of perfume on her skin, the steady rhythm of rain. After a while, she said, You remind me of him sometimes. Your brother. Do I? I asked. She hesitated. No. Not really. That pause carried something heavy. Something she wasn't supposed to feel. A drop of rain rolled down from the roof and landed on her arm. She brushed it away absently, then looked at me again, that same searching look from the night before. You shouldn't stay long, she said. Why? Because people notice things. Like what? Her lips curved, but her eyes didn't match. Like the way you look at me when you think I'm not watching. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. She stood then, stepping past me toward the door. As she did, her hand brushed my shoulder, maybe by accident, maybe not. Her fingers lingered just a fraction longer than they should have. Warm. Real. Enough to make me forget to breathe. I looked up at her, and she was already looking back. For a moment neither of us moved. The rain kept falling. Her hand stayed there, just long enough to feel like a question neither of us could answer. Then she drew it away, exhaling softly, her voice barely audible. You make it too easy to forget what's wrong. Maybe that's not wrong, I said. She shook her head, but there was a faint smile now, the kind that doesn't mean yes, but doesn't mean no either. And then, for just a heartbeat, she reached out again, her fingers brushing the inside of my wrist, tracing the warmth there before she let go. The touch was nothing and everything. It didn't ask for more. It only promised that something already had begun. It happened 2 days later. The house was quiet except for the soft hum of the ceiling fan and the occasional creak of floorboards that made it feel like the place was listening. My friend had gone out to run errands, and somehow, we'd ended up in the living room, me flipping through a book I wasn't reading, her standing by the window, tracing the condensation on the glass with her fingertip. She didn't look at me when she spoke. You'll be leaving soon, won't you? Tomorrow, I said. Her finger stopped moving. Right. The silence stretched again, the way it always did between us, thick, fragile, electric. I set the book down, my hand resting on the spine longer than needed. You could come by before I go. Say goodbye properly. She turned then, leaning slightly against the frame. That's not a good idea. It's just a goodbye. She gave a faint, knowing smile. That's exactly why it's not. A phone buzzed on the coffee table. My heart jumped, but it wasn't mine. Her screen lit up with her brother's name. She didn't move to answer. Just stared at it until the ringing stopped. When she finally spoke, her voice was quiet. He still thinks you're just a kid. You know that? I nodded. I know. And if he saw the way you're looking at me right now. She didn't finish. I didn't stop looking either. She moved closer, slowly, not stepping, just letting the space shrink. The air changed when she did. Her perfume, the faint warmth from her skin, it was like stepping into a thought you weren't supposed to have. Her eyes flicked down, then up again. You should really stop that. What? Wanting something that shouldn't happen. Then tell me to stop. She hesitated, her breath catching the smallest bit. You wouldn't listen. No, I said. I wouldn't. Her hand lifted as if to touch my face, then paused halfway, trembling just slightly. Her voice dropped to a whisper. You don't understand how complicated this is. I think I do. Her fingers brushed my jaw then, light as air, just enough to make my pulse trip. Her eyes searched mine like she was looking for an exit that didn't exist. The front door clicked. We froze. Her hand snapped back, her breath unsteady. My friend's voice carried faintly from the hallway. You here? Too close, too real. She stepped away fast, turning toward the window again. I picked the book back up, pretending to read, heart pounding like I'd done something more than almost. When my friend appeared in the doorway, she smiled like nothing had happened. "You two look bored," he said. "Just talking," she replied smoothly. After he left for his room, the silence that followed was different, charged, dangerous. I looked at her. She didn't look back, but I saw her shoulders rise and fall, too fast to be calm. Then, under her breath, so quiet I almost thought I imagined it, she said, "You make it impossible to breathe around you." And for the first time, I didn't try to answer. I just stood there, knowing we were already past the point of pretending nothing was happening. It was late. The kind of late where the air feels heavier, where every sound carries too far. The house was asleep, lights dimmed, voices gone, only the quiet hum of the world outside. I was in the kitchen, rinsing out a glass, when she appeared in the doorway. Barefoot again, wearing a loose sweater that slid slightly off one shoulder. Her hair was down this time, softer, messier, like she'd stopped trying to hide how tired she was. "You can't sleep either?" I asked. She shook her head. "I stopped trying." Her voice was low, rougher than usual. I could tell she'd been thinking too much, the same way I had. "Want some tea?" I offered, though I didn't move toward the kettle. She smiled faintly. "If I said yes, would it make this less strange?" "No," I said. "Probably worse." That made her laugh, a quiet, tired laugh that caught somewhere in her chest. She stepped closer, close enough for the faint scent of her skin to replace the smell of soap and steam. "Do you ever think about how people see us?" she asked suddenly. "All the time." "And?" I stopped caring. Her eyes lifted to mine, a look that lingered too long. "You should care." "I can't." Something in her expression faltered then, a small crack in all that control she wore like armor. "You don't understand what this would cost me," she whispered. I set the glass down slowly. "Then tell me to walk away." She didn't. Instead, she reached up and brushed a hand through my hair, gentle, almost trembling. "You shouldn't make it this easy." "Easy?" I said, my voice catching. "You think any of this is easy?" The words hung there, heavier than they should have been. I took a small step forward, then another. She didn't move back. Her hand was still in my hair, her other resting against the counter behind her, trapping her between the edge and me. "I've tried," she said softly. "I keep trying to pretend this isn't real," I finished. She nodded once, barely. "And every time I see you, it gets harder." I reached up, brushed a loose strand of hair from her cheek. My fingers grazed her skin, warm, alive. Her breath hitched. Mine did too. "This isn't fair," she whispered. "No," I said. "But it's honest." For a heartbeat, either of us moved. The world narrowed, just the faint hum of the fridge, the pulse in my throat, her eyes searching mine like she was already memorizing the moment. Her hand slipped from my hair and found my wrist instead, fingers curling there, holding on like she was afraid to let go. "Say something," she breathed. "I can't," I said. "Not unless you do." She looked at me then, really looked, and the air between us broke open, charged, unsteady. She tilted her head slightly, lips parting just enough for breath to brush against my skin. Then, a door opened down the hall. We froze. Her hand fell away. I stepped back. The moment shattered like glass, quiet, but impossible to fix. From the hallway came her brother's half-asleep voice. "Everything okay?" She answered before I could. "Yeah," she said, steady now. "Just couldn't sleep." He mumbled something and closed his door again. She looked back at me, eyes wide, pulse still visible at her throat. "This has to stop," she whispered. But her voice didn't sound convinced. And neither of us moved. Morning brought the kind of quiet that doesn't feel peaceful. It felt held, like the house itself was waiting for something to happen. I found her outside again, sitting on the steps, sunlight cutting across her bare knees. She was holding her phone, staring at it like it had just said something she didn't want to hear. When she looked up, there was a flicker of something in her face, panic, maybe, or disbelief. "What happened?" I asked. She hesitated. "Your friend called me last night. He said you told him you liked someone." I blinked. "I didn't tell him who." "You didn't have to." The way she said it, soft, certain, felt like a door quietly closing. I sat beside her, the distance between us small but suddenly too much. "Did he say anything else?" She nodded, eyes still on her phone. "He said he's always wondered why you keep coming over when he's not around." I exhaled sharply. "He's guessing. He's not wrong." Her voice was calm, but her hand trembled slightly where it rested against her knee. The sunlight felt hotter than it should have been. A bead of sweat rolled down her temple, and she brushed it away, only for her fingers to pause halfway, as if realizing I was watching. "You should probably not come by for a while," she said. "You really want that?" "No," she admitted, voice almost breaking. "But it's what makes sense." She stood abruptly, brushing invisible dust from her jeans. Her movements were too sharp, too rehearsed, like she was trying to convince herself she still had control. I followed her inside. "You're not good at pretending, you know." She spun around, eyes flashing. "And you're not good at stopping." That stopped me cold. We were inches apart, her breath uneven, her chest rising too fast. "I told myself I could handle this," she said softer now. "But I can't. Every time you walk into a room, it feels like I forget who I'm supposed to be." Her words hit harder than they should have. I reached for her without thinking, not to pull her closer, just to steady her. My hand brushed her arm, and she froze. The tremor ran through both of us. "You think I don't feel the same?" I asked quietly. Her eyes met mine. There was no denial there, just exhaustion. "That's what scares me." For a moment neither of us spoke. Only the sound of our breathing filled the room. Then she stepped forward, just once, and the air shifted again. Her hand found my chest, palm flat against where my heart was hammering. "Do you hear that?" she whispered. "Yes. That's the problem." We stood there, locked in a silence that felt too intimate to name. Then her phone buzzed again. She looked down, her brother's name flashing across the screen. The sound broke whatever was left of our restraint. She pressed the phone to her chest, eyes wet now. "If I answer, this ends? If I don't?" I waited. She didn't answer. She just looked at me, and that was the moment I knew we'd already crossed the point of no return. The rain came back that night, harder than before, loud enough to blur the edges of thought. The house felt smaller, the walls closer. I was halfway to the door, ready to leave before things got worse, when I heard her voice behind me. "Don't go." It wasn't a plea. It was quieter than that, a confession that slipped out before she could stop it. I turned. She was standing at the end of the hall, barefoot again, her sweater hanging off one shoulder. The light from the living room caught the line of her collarbone, the tired calm in her face. "You don't mean that," I said, though I hoped she did. She took a slow step toward me. "You think I don't?" Her voice trembled just enough to sound real. She kept coming, step by step, until the space between us was nothing more than breath. "This isn't supposed to happen," she whispered. "Then tell me to stop." She didn't. Her hand rose, stopping just short of my chest, her fingers hovering there, feeling the heat without touching. "Every time you walk in, I promise myself I'll keep my distance." And then, I closed my eyes for half a second, because looking at her made it impossible to breathe. "Then what?" "Then you look at me like that," she said, voice breaking on the last word. The power flickered. The rain thudded harder against the windows. She stepped closer, so close I could smell the rain in her hair, the faint citrus on her skin. I said her name. It came out low, uneven, almost a prayer. She looked up at me, eyes wet, unguarded. "Tell me this isn't wrong." I wanted to. I couldn't. Instead, I reached up, slow, deliberate, and brushed a damp strand of hair away from her face. Her breath caught. My fingers lingered too long, tracing the air just beside her cheek. "It's not wrong," I said finally. It's just us. That word hung there, heavy, fragile, real. She leaned in, close enough that her breath warmed my jaw. Our foreheads almost touched. I could feel the tremor in her body, the pull between wanting to stay and knowing she shouldn't. Say something, she whispered. I don't have to. She exhaled, shaky. Her hand found mine, gripping it tight, not to pull me closer, but to stop herself from doing it. I've spent years pretending I don't need anything, she said. You make that impossible. Her voice cracked halfway through, and something inside me broke with it. I cupped her face, gently, just enough to feel the tremor in her jaw. For a second, she let me. Then she closed her eyes, leaned forward, a breath away, her lips trembling near mine, before she whispered, almost like it hurt to say it. If we cross this line, there's no going back. I know, I said. Maybe that's the point. The thunder rolled outside. For one impossible second, she didn't move, caught between resistance and surrender. Then she pressed her forehead to mine, whispering, Don't make me choose. I'm not, I said quietly. You already have. Her hand slipped from mine, then returned, fingers interlacing, a silent answer neither of us spoke aloud. And in that small, trembling space between us, everything became clear. Not perfect. Not safe. Just true. Morning came quietly. The storm had passed, but the air still smelled like rain, that soft, clean scent that makes everything feel new. She was sitting at the kitchen table, hair still damp, wrapped in a cardigan that looked too big for her. I stood in the doorway, not sure what to say, not sure what we even were now that the night was gone. She looked up first. You're leaving today? I nodded. Yeah. Her eyes fell to her hands, tracing the edge of her coffee cup. You didn't say goodbye last night. You didn't let me. That earned a small, tired smile. Maybe I didn't know how. The quiet between us was softer now, not heavy, not sharp. Just honest. I sat across from her. The sunlight fell between us, catching the faint shimmer of water still clinging to the window. I kept thinking, she said finally, how ridiculous it is. You're 20-something, I'm not. I almost smiled. That's your big confession? No, she said, meeting my eyes. The real confession is that I stopped caring about what it looks like a long time ago. Her voice cracked on the last word, and I saw her catch it, the instinct to pull back, to cover it up. But this time, she didn't. I reached out across the table. My fingers brushed hers, then stayed there. Then don't start caring now, I said quietly. She didn't move her hand away. Just let it rest there, warm and steady, her thumb tracing absent circles over my skin. I thought I'd regret last night, she admitted. Do you? She shook her head slowly. No. I regret waiting this long to stop pretending. For a moment, neither of us said anything. The hum of the refrigerator, the low drip of rain outside, everything felt suspended, like time had decided to give us just a few extra seconds. Then she stood and came around to my side of the table. She didn't say a word, just leaned down and rested her forehead against mine, the same way she had the night before. It wasn't a kiss. It didn't need to be. Her hand slid to the back of my neck, her fingers light but sure. You make every moment feel like a secret, she whispered. I smiled, because now it didn't sound like a warning. It sounded like the truth, the kind that stays quiet, that doesn't need to be explained to anyone else. I wrapped my arms around her, and she let herself lean into it, her breathing slow, steady against my chest. There were no promises, no grand words about the future. Just the quiet agreement of two people who finally stopped running from what they already knew. When she pulled back, she was smiling, soft, a little sad but free. Come back, she said. I will. And this time, it didn't feel like a secret. It just felt right.